Hi, I'm Rob with Threefold Defensive Training. This is Joe, who's being really quiet now. Um, hey,
I'm Joe.
hey, Joe. So Joe and I are going to talk about some things we've seen with everyday carry, right? Some questionable things, some good things, things you should think about, things you should definitely do versus things you don't need to do. But just you hear EDC a lot in the gun community and in the tactical community, and I think people get confused to where you start seeing, the scene from the pirate movie where the guy's pulling a gun and a knife and a sword. And, like, dear Lord, man, how much stuff do you have? Versus the guy who thinks his EDC is, his pistol. He's got his whoopee and he's good to go. So we were going to talk about some stuff. So, Joe, what do you think? What do you think of when you think EDC?
So I can tell you what I think about it now. I definitely have had an evolved perspective on it. I was very much gun centric starting out. Like, first time I started carrying gear for the defense of myself or others, it was literally, aside from like a professional, these are issued to you type firearms and tools, out in the civilian side, leaving Liberty or out of the service, walking around in my day-to-day life in non-gun professional role. It was very much like gun heavy. It's like, well, as long as I have a gun, I'm good. Like, this is my, to pardon the phrase, problem solver. Like, I'm good with this. I don't need anything else.
Right. Had a hammer, looking for some nails.
Right. Yeah. And I think now I've been in situations where I can't have a gun on me, or carrying a gun with me would be less than desirable if it was discovered that I had a firearm on. So places that we all have to go where, you're not supposed to carry a gun. It's not legal for you to, or it's not recommended that you do so. Or places where it's just very socially awkward to carry a firearm. So, like, for instance, probably 2 to 3 times a week, I take my kids to the pool during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I get in the pool with the kids in the water. Like, how am I going to be carrying a firearm in the pool with a 5-year-old, wearing swim trunks? Like, that's not, I mean, there's ways to do it, certainly, but I don't do it.
Right.
So off-body carry, I normally would kind of like poo-poo that idea when I was, I got a gun, I'm good, like, why would you carry a gun off-body? Well, there's places where maybe that's your only option if you have to carry a gun.
Okay.
And so I'm looking at it more along the lines of, wherever I'm going, what are some things I can bring with me that are not going to completely ruin the trip or ruin the experience, that in a pinch, in an emergency type situation, these would be useful to me or to those around me. Okay. So at a minimum, that's going to be medical, it's going to be flashlight, and if I can get away with it, a pocket knife. And then from there, it's going to go up to a higher level of stuff, such as a gun, and then perhaps a gun with some additional things on it, like a flashlight or a red dot sight, and then a spare magazine, and some of these other things that like start layering beyond just having the gun, right?
Right.
Have a gun. Well, you need to put bullets in it, and maybe you want to have something to aim and see what you're shooting at in low light environments and things like that. But that's kind of where I'm at with that right now. Is I don't always need to have a gun on me. Sometimes I can't have a gun on me. And so EDC to me is the stuff that I carry with me wherever I go that can be useful to me or those around me in an emergency situation.
Okay. So you touched on something that I think is super, super important, and I'm really happy to see that the tactical community, the defensive community is starting to get more on board with it. But you mentioned medical. There's guys out there. We were talking earlier. The guy who's like, oh, well, I got a pocket full of tampons, and I got my belt on because you told me in class to buy a good belt to hold my gun. So I've always got a belt on. So I'm ready for any emergency. And we've talked. I was a tampon guy for a long time because I had a medic in the Army 25 years ago who said, oh, tampons. And yeah, so thank God for good friends that are willing to tell you, unless you have a student who needs those, you don't need those.
Yep.
So those are now gone, and I now carry a Dark Angel Pocket Dark. In addition to that, I have a Cat 7. Whether you like the Cat 7 or you like something else. We've talked, and other people have talked about carrying a tourniquet and the proper supplies TCCC would recommend. And I think they just upgraded to 5 or 6 now, where it was like
Yep.
2 or 3. So I think the options are out there for good quality gear. So I'm just curious what you think about that as far as medical gear. Like, so I mentioned what I carry. So I've got quick clot. I've got gloves, which I'm terrible at putting on PPE, but you got gloves, and then I got the bandage with the gauze and the tourniquet. Yeah, so I've got pretty much the spectrum of stopping the bleed, and we're halfway through May, which will stop the bleed month. So, yay for stop the bleed month. But just out of curiosity, so what does your EDC medical look like?
So at a minimum, I will have a tourniquet on me, at an absolute
Okay.
minimum. And what I've found is there hasn't been a place that I've gone to that I was prohibited from carrying a tourniquet into.
Right.
I haven't been to jail, so I don't know if they let me take a tourniquet into jail or not. I would imagine no.
You're too pretty for jail, my friend. Too
Yeah,
pretty for
right.
jail.
But airport security, I've gotten some questions like, what is this? Why do you have this? And when
Right.
I tell them it's life-saving emergency medical equipment, it's a tourniquet. It's used to control hemorrhaging. I can't say that word.
Sure.
I usually get a blank stare, and then they shake their head and they just let me take it through. Or
Right.
I think one time I actually had to speak to a supervisor, but it hasn't been an inconvenience to me as far as like going through airport security, court security, in and out of my place of work. It doesn't get in the way. It literally takes up less space than a cell phone. There are people out there that are walking around with 2 or 3 cell phones. So if you only have one cell phone, you probably can get away with a cell phone and a tourniquet.
And a tourniquet.
But yeah, at a minimum, a tourniquet. And what I've been trying to carry along with that, kind of dependent on the clothing that I'm wearing, is a package of some type of gauze, Z-packed, like an H&H bandage or some combat quick clot gauze, and throw that either rubber band into the tourniquet or in an adjacent pocket or in the same pocket. But at a minimum, I'll have that on my person.
Okay.
When I start going to the range and I'm training or practicing, I'll have usually a mini blowout kit that has some of the other essentials like trauma shears and some gloves and an additional packet of quick clot. And now I'll have 2 tourniquets on me because I have a tourniquet in my cargo pocket or my back pocket of my jeans, and then another one on my pistol rig or my plate carrier or whatever else.
Right.
And then in all my vehicles, I have a Magpul DACA pouch with a couple
nice.
of tourniquets, more quick clot, more pressure dressings, more band-aids, bandages. And people are like, why would you put band-aids in a first aid kit or a trauma kit? It doesn't take up any space. I go to one place in my vehicle for emergency type essentials.
Mm-hmm.
A band-aid can actually stop some, decent-ish bleeding, not like gunshot bleeding or anything like that. But then I don't have to worry about like, where's the band-aids and where's the, serious use stuff. But I don't have a whole lot of other things in there like aspirin or tampons or, other essentials if you're out camping or whatever else. Like that stuff is stored elsewhere.
Sure.
For the wife and everything else. So that's where I'm at right now with medical. Something I need to do is get more current up-to-date medical training.
Right.
As part of my work, I have to take CPR, AED, tourniquet training annually once a year, and I get a certification for that. So I have like literally what I would consider the minimum amount of training. My last real relevant medical training was when I was active duty military, which is 7-8 years ago now. So I don't have anything really, really current as far as trauma care. It's something I know you've taken recently. It's something I'm looking at doing and wanting to do either with Dark Angel Medical or some of these other guys that are teaching this stuff. And I think it's really important that if you are going to get medical training, that you get good medical training. It's as important as making sure the gear is good.
Right.
You would think there wouldn't be people trying to take money from you teaching life-saving skills, but
That don't know what they're talking about. Yeah.
Not all people are great. So I would never try and like teach other people how to teach, do medical stuff because I'm at a bare minimum for medical experience and training. Have I used medical equipment to help people? Yes. Do I carry it on me to help myself and others? Yes. Do I want to get more training? Absolutely. Do I want to get training to certify myself to teach other people? Not really. It's not something I'm really interested in doing. But at a minimum, carry the stuff, know how to use it on yourself and others, and then seek training and then try and keep up to date as best as possible.
All right. So, hey, since you mentioned the training, really quick, four off the top of my head. Sean with We Like Shooting is who I just took my civilian medical through, which I thought was great. Um, I'm in Colorado. You're in Colorado. Dark Angel Medical,
Terry
phenomenal
Davis.
2 day class. Sean's was We Like Shooting was a 1 day class, 9-10 hours. Really good class. Um, Dark Angel we talked about. Lone Star Medic down there in Texas. Great training. And then I think everybody knows him from YouTube is Skinny Medic. If you get in on a class with Skinny Medic, you're getting some good quality training. People out there in the YouTube world, on the interwebs, sorry if I missed your guy. Those are the four I know off the top of my head. Anybody you'd add to that list?
Chris Millard. I don't, off the top of my head, know what his business name is, but if you Google Chris Millard,
Okay.
I think it's Maillard. He's a TCCC instructor and teaches a wide gamut of classes. And a lot of his stuff is not tactical central or centric. It's like, you're out hiking, you're out ATVing, you're
Right.
out four-wheeling, you're on a construction site. It's just dealing with losing blood and hurting your extremities and your torso. It's all the same stuff, whether it was a 7.62 round or a sharp jagged edge of a 2x4 or a piece of rebar. Like it's
Right.
all like you need to stop the bleeding and you need to figure out how you're going to get further follow-on care as quickly as possible within like the golden hour, so to speak, to try and get that person the help they need.
Yeah, the only people who care how the wound happened are the cops afterwards.
Yeah.
During the process of fixing it is that's the important part for us. The other thing I really liked about Sean's class at We Like Shooting, and you mentioned getting more training, Sean will let you retake the class at a severely discounted course fee every time you want to take it in the future.
So it's like
I
a
don't want to
refresh
name
option.
that price. Yeah, I don't want to name that price, but you get to take the exact same class for significantly less as often as you want once you've been through it. He calls you his alumni. So in relevance to you wanting some training, let me know when you want some training. We'll get it set up and I'll take the class in with you because it was good.
Game.
Okay, so medical, I think we beat that pretty good. I think we're good. You mentioned a flashlight, and I think you were at the range with me during a class recently or within the last few months. My wife says I have no concept of time. So recently could be yesterday or 8 years ago. We were there and I mentioned having a flashlight and somebody goes, why do you need a flashlight? It's daytime. And I was like, because there's no windows where you work. That would be relevant. So flashlight, I think a good quality flashlight. We were recently talking about flashlights and the difference between lumens and something else. Candelas. And the broad spectrum light source versus the pinpoint. I'm not just throwing a flashbang into a room and going, that was 7,000 lumens, but I only saw it for a split second. So just a good quality flashlight is pretty solid material. Let's see. Batteries on a flashlight. I would say for your EDC, your everyday carry, you probably need a flashlight that's got either fresh batteries or rechargeable batteries. And you want to make sure those are going to be working because there's nothing worse than a flashlight when you need it that doesn't work. I think we've all seen the horror movies where they're trying to get the light to come back on and then it comes back on and that's where the critter is, right? So, so solid flashlight, right? So we talked about medical. Really quick, Colorado state law says if you're carrying concealed, you have to have your ID on you in addition to your carry permit. So I would consider your ID everyday carry. Whether you're going to pay cash or a credit card, whatever. But I would say you need to have your ID on you because if you can't show it to the officer or the responding paramedics or whatever, at least they can find it on you. And now you're not John Doe or Jane Doe at the hospital and your family's calling trying to find you. Cell phone, charged cell phone. We talk about 911 a lot in classes, right? But I think most people kind of take it for granted that they'll be able to dial 911 if they need to. But have you tried to find a payphone if your phone is dead? or ask a stranger for their cell phone and see the looks you get. So just keep that in mind when we talk about cell phone. Everyday carry is stuff that you would, I'm getting ready to leave the house and I need to have this stuff with me. And I love that you talked about, off body having its place. Because I think girls carrying off body take a lot of flack from us guys because we're so used to carrying on body that we don't really take into consideration the criticalness that ladies have of carrying off body. So being able to talk about off body carry for your EDC, I think, is important. If you never carry off body and you throw your gun in a backpack, you definitely still come up feeling all naked. So something, and you should definitely know how to draw from that method, whether you are carrying off body or on body. You should practice with that method for that. So let's see. We were going to talk about a couple other things. So we covered flashlight, medical, off body, on body. How about holsters? I mean, people are constantly trying to figure out what kind of holster should I get. I mean, that's besides which gun should I buy, which you just talked about with me a minute ago. I think what holster is best is the next biggest question I get as an instructor teaching carry classes. How about you?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of times how it's worded is, what gun do you have? What holster do you have?
Right.
And I think sometimes it's curiosity. Sometimes, though, I think it is honestly like, whatever that guy just told me, I'm going to go buy what he has.
Right.
And instead of asking, like, what should I get? They just kind of want to know, like, what you have so they can, for lack of a better term, piggyback off of you. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, if I'm talking to a clone of me, it's like same age, same height, build, body weight,
right.
style choices, like maybe him asking me and telling him what I'm carrying, maybe that will actually work for him and work well. But I think a lot of people don't want anything aside from an easy answer. Like they want to take the easy road to getting something that they need, which is interesting because at the same time, you'll get a lot of people that will take the easy road and it ends up actually being the hard road. Like the road that I took to get to where I'm at now and the road that I'm on to get to somewhere else was not easy. Like I've gone through tens of holsters, almost tens of guns, like
that's how you end up with the crate full of holsters.
Yep. And so honestly, the easy road sometimes is like talking to somebody that's been down that road and listening to what they have to say. But I think a dangerous attitude to have, whether you're just getting into this or you've been in this a long time, is like picking an idol or somebody that you respect and look up to and trying to clone what they're doing.
Right.
If it functions and it works, then that's not necessarily a bad approach because you might be able to save some time and save some dime. But if you are going to do that, you should at least know why. Like, why should I get this holster? Just because you have it?
Why does this holster work for you versus
just because you have it? Just because the company that you bought the holster from gave you a discount coupon? Like, what about it is a good quality piece of kit? What about that gun is a good quality gun? Why is that a good idea? And looking at it from multiple angles instead of like, this guy I really look up to owns this thing, I'm going to go buy that thing. If you got all the excessive cash flow in the world and that's something you want to do, then knock yourself out. I'm not saying you can't do that or shouldn't do that, but think about it from a little bit more of a broad approach and come at it from different angles and kind of see like, and also taking it in totality. Like, oh, you have that holster? Well, I'll go buy that holster. And then they buy that holster and they realize it doesn't fit their gun. Or, oh, you mean I have to buy the gun and a flashlight to use the holster you have? I didn't know that. Or, oh, well, the reason the holster and gun that you have works so well is because you're using it in conjunction with this belt. And so there's more going on than just each individual piece of kit or gear.
Right. And I think something when we talk holsters, I think something that we get a lot that people don't take into consideration is, well, how are you planning on carrying this gun? Are you planning on carrying, inside the waistband, outside the waistband? Are you going to be going appendix? Are you going to be going strong side? the one thing I would say that is almost a given, and I feel this way anyways, is that don't get a universal fit holster. Oh, I have 10 guns and I just want to buy one holster that'll fit all 10 guns.
Yep.
That sounds awesome when you're looking at it from a budget point of view. And from somebody who used to have I don't know if we should name brands here, but why not? Uncle Mike's universal fit holster. Knowing what I know now, 25 years after I started this journey of carrying every day, I would plead with people to get a gun that is, or a holster that is designed to fit your gun. And if you have 3 guns, then you probably end up needing 3 holsters. That there's a very rare, I think the ALS has a couple that you can do a quick modification of to make it fit, or is that the GLS? But
yeah, the GLS one.
The GLS has like a universal style that's actually pretty good for what it does. But for the most part, yeah, I would steer clear of the universal fits. Why not badmouth some stuff right now? What do you think of a gun with a thumb brake, or a holster with a thumb brake?
As part of my work, I'm actually issued a holster like that. It is
Okay.
not optimal.
Okay.
It does not allow for rapid access to the firearm for you. It does not slow down in any way, shape, or form somebody trying to take the gun away from you.
Right.
And it makes it difficult, if not dangerous, to reholster the firearm.
Okay. Yeah, that's
especially one-handed.
Right.
So imagine you're in a situation where the gun needs to go away and you still need to have a flashlight in your hand and illuminate something.
Right.
Like I pulled both and I can put the gun away now, but I still need to be like looking with this flashlight, or I still need to be driving this car, or I still need to be like doing something important with this other hand that you can't just stop and be like, time out, I need to like fiddle with my holster now. And what I've seen time and time again is people either just power through it and they're trying to get the gun back in and get the thumb brake out of the way, and it ends up like they literally are this close to having something really bad happen to them or those around them. Or they end up having to do the whole timeout. Let me take 2 hands and look at this thing for like 5 seconds, putting the gun away.
Right.
It's not that you, it's not necessarily an issue of like, hey, you should be able to quickly reholster the gun, because if you can put the gun away, you probably, not always, but probably have time to do so, right?
Right.
And you shouldn't be in a rush to put it away necessarily. But you don't necessarily want something that takes 3 hands and 17 seconds.
Call a buddy over to help you.
Process, yeah, to get the gun back in. It's especially, honestly, like just from a logistical training aspect, if you're that guy on the range with 5, 6, 7, 10, 19 other students, and every time you do a drill, well, bam, 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 bam. All right, time to holster. And you're like the last guy screwing around with your holster trying to get the gun to go back in.
Right.
You're costing other people time, and time is money. And you're costing the instructor's time and his money and the stuff that he wants to push out to the class. So there's a whole bunch of different reasons why I don't really care for the thumb brake holsters.
Okay.
Can I go back on something real quick that you
go for it. Yeah, 100%.
The universal holster thing. It's actually a good idea. Like in theory,
right? Yeah.
Like cup holders in your car. How many of us have ever had a car where the cup holder is like, it's just this weird size, and there's literally only one cup you own that fits in that cup holder. And every other cup you own, it's either too loose and your Red Bull can is like shaking like this, about to spill out, or it's too big and it's like just gently resting in that pocket, and you take a turn and it spills.
Going up, yep.
So like it's nice when you get a car where the cup holders are kind of like 2-tiered and it will hold multiple different cup sizes, and I don't have to worry about like, did I buy the wrong size cup of coffee at the Circle K or the 7-Eleven to fit in my cup holder? Well, with guns, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, it would be nice to have a holster that lets you use multiple firearms in that holster. There are a few, like you mentioned, the GLS Filster in Philadelphia. John Hopman makes a really, really fantastic holster called the Floodlight. And it doesn't index on the gun, it indexes on a weapon light, a pistol light.
Gotcha.
So as long as you're willing to make the commitment of every gun that I'm going to carry on my body is going to take this pistol light, then you can literally, like, I think at this point, they've tried over 50 different common and very uncommon handguns. And as long as that handgun accepted that light, they haven't found one yet that wouldn't work with the holster.
Nice.
And still give retention and still cover the trigger guard and still not be excessively bulky and still be very concealable. So there are kind of sort of universal holsters out there, but you got to shop around. You got to do your research, your product research before you drop your hard-earned dollars down for something.
Right. And I think something to remember with holsters is that bucket of holsters that we all have that have been carrying for a couple of years. And it's not a badge of honor in any way, shape, or form. We tell people that, you don't have to spend $200-300 on a holster. But at the same time, don't go too low on your budget. But if you figure if you were budget shopping for holsters, and you went through 3 holsters at $30-40 a piece, you're now $90 to $120 that you could have spent on a quality holster that wouldn't have broke the bank, and you're going to use it instead of it's going to sit in a bucket, or you're going to try to sell it at the garage sale. Excuse me. So keep that in mind when you're on a budget. And Joe and I totally understand the budget thing. We have had many conversations about our training budgets, and I think that's part of the reason why.
Hey, Rob.
Yep.
I've got somebody at my front door. My kids are home, so I'm gonna dip out real quick. I'll be right back.
Hey, so Joe had to answer the door, and we needed to take a quick break, so we edited that out. We didn't cut it out for any content or anything. So, so we were talking about the Filster holster, universal fit holsters. Budget, I think, is where we left off. Was we were talking about spending your money wisely. So we know that from a point of view of, hey, we have a small budget to work with. Our training budget, our equipment budget is all very realistic. Joe works a full-time job. I'm a kept man. My wife works a full-time job. In that I'm blessed. But stay-at-home dad. So yeah, when I have to justify spending money, there has to be a justification for it. I can't just go out and willy-nilly spend it. So, and win the lottery, sure, I might go out and buy one of every holster, but for right now, I need to be more wise with my funds. So I would say, with that in mind, when we're talking about EDC, so budget, flashlight, holster. While we're on holster, strong side versus appendix seems to be a pretty big debate these days. You and I both favor the appendix. I think, having come from recently in the last 2 years carrying appendix, people who immediately jump to, you're going to shoot your junk off. Well, I would disagree. I would say that it is no safer to holster sideways with a strong side reholster than it is to holster appendix. I would almost challenge that it's safer to holster appendix because you can see more of what you're trying to do at less of a weird angle and twist. My personal opinion. What do you think?
100% agreed. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this. Imagine this is a student and strong side, and they go to put the gun in at an angle.
Yeah.
If they somehow crack a shot off, it's going to transversely cross through hip to hip.
Yeah.
Through all the important stuff down there.
Right.
Whereas front and center, you can see what you're doing. Honestly, when I first started carrying appendix, I completely slowed down how I did things because it is a psychological, hang up for people. Talking to people that are like, yeah, I carry appendix, but I don't carry with round in the chamber because I'm nervous. It's like, okay. But it's that much of a psychological hurdle for some people because it's not really normal to take a gun and generally poke it in that area of your body. So it has some pluses in that it makes you stop and think before you put the gun away.
Right.
Whereas I've seen people like, I'm carrying strong side, outside the waistband. I'm just going to take this gun and shove it in my gun bucket. And there's been all kinds of police officers, all kinds of security officers, all kinds of military folks that have had that literally bite them in the butt or some other part of their leg because they got a drawstring from a coat caught in there, or their finger, or
their
something.
thumb snap.
Exactly, their thumb break. So I think it's definitely some considerations to think about, like how you're holstering, what kind of holster you're choosing.
Sure.
And for some people's body types or surgeries or physical limitations, maybe that's not a good option for them.
Right.
If you got third-degree burn scars down in that part of your body, maybe that's not a great place to carry a gun all day. So it's not like the do-all for everybody, but I think it definitely has some positives, and it's something I've been doing since 2012, and what is that, 7 years now, and it's worked very well for me and my purposes.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, and I think you and I have talked about this, and I think I've heard you talking with students about this. It really is a personal decision. It's all about the comfort of what you're doing. So are you carrying more for comfort? Are you carrying more for concealment? What are your purposes behind having that gun on you? If your purposes are to really conceal the gun, then I would suggest looking at a strong side or an appendix inside the waistband. I don't think there's a such thing as an appendix outside the waistband, or at least there shouldn't be.
Not marketed as such. I've seen people do it though.
Yeah, well, it doesn't stop people. Yeah, it usually comes right before, here, hold this, and I'm going to shoot that.
Yeah.
And then there's a great YouTube video. So with that being said, I've said a lot, so I'm going to try to cut back on that. I'm catching myself now. With that said, inside the waistband, outside the waistband, really a comfort issue. What you're more comfortable doing versus what you're looking to get out of it. If you're carrying because you're going to go for a hike, then outside the waistband. If you're carrying on duty, security work, or law enforcement, outside the waistband. If you're looking to carry on a concealed carry permit, I would almost really strongly recommend the inside the waistband approach. It's really difficult to truly conceal something that sits 2 inches off your hip or off your waist, I guess, if you're outside the waistband appendix. But that's how that goes. So it's just a matter of taking the classes, spending the time, going through the repetitions, and building that comfort up. If you're that uncomfortable carrying to where you want to consider not carrying around in the chamber, then I think that's a training issue more than a holster issue, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
With that in mind, condition 1 or condition 3, and what?
Condition 1.
Let's give a, for those of us who maybe like I just did with you, what is condition 1?
So essentially, it's round in the chamber versus not round in the chamber.
So condition 1, round in the chamber. Condition 3, no round in the chamber. So loaded magazine, gun is semi-ready to work, but you have to do some more manipulations besides just press out and work the trigger.
Yep.
Okay. So I think Joe and I agree. Condition 1 is the way to go. There's just too many variables with the condition 3. I'll snap it off my belt with the sights, and I'll just do. Sure, if you practice that and you're good at it, can it be done? Yes. Do you want to have to do that when time counts? No. You've got your kids. Joe and I both have kids. Both Joe and I both married. If we have to move our spouse or a loved one behind
not to each other though.
No, we are not married to each other. 2 different branches of the military. It wouldn't work. Neither one of us was in the Navy, so it's not going to fly. I just alienated all the Navy guys. So there you go.
Pastor Matt will not be happy with you.
Pastor Matt, it doesn't matter if Pastor Matt's happy with me. Pastor Matt will just shake his head and be like, "That's just Rob." But that said, if that's what we're going for, then that's what we're going for. Correct? You're carrying the gun to defend yourself, and you don't want to take any more time than you need to get that first shot off. And I forget who said it. I know everybody said it a couple of times. I can't give this quote to anybody in particular, but the first person to get an accurate hit on target usually tends to win the gunfight. And if you're still working your slide to get that round chambered, then you're probably not going to be the first one to get an accurate shot.
Yep.
If anybody's ever done reload drills and you watch your accuracy drop off just doing a reload, now add into that a draw and a press and a slide rack, and for whatever reason you're not doing it with 2 hands, or you are doing it with 2 hands, or so let's just say condition 1 is highly recommended. If not, maybe the be all end all in that conversation. If you're nervous about that, your holster or your gun being not loaded while you're wearing it, then I would suggest more training with someone who's competent. In looking at EDC, ID, your permit if you need it. If you're in a constitutional carry state, good for you. We're not yet, and
Working on it.
We may not be for a while. We're still hopeful though, right? Because we don't want to name anybody. So and so we don't want to call any names or do anything like that. So ID, carry permit if you need it, cell phone which is charged, flashlight which is charged, or good batteries. So things. How would you check on that stuff? Just every day you just click your flashlight on and make sure it's good. Yeah, it doesn't take that long when you're getting dressed in the morning, right? Press check your firearm to make sure that there's a round in the chamber. Safe direction when you do that. Obviously, always safety first. What else? Med kit.
Medical. Yep. Knives.
What about that all important firearm? Like what are we looking at there? Like what are we? Do we need something full size because it's got a better grip? Do we need something smaller because it's easier to conceal? How many rounds are important? The other question we mentioned earlier is what holster should I get, or what do you have? And then the next question is usually what gun are you shooting, or what gun should I get? My personal answer to that is always go shopping. Go handle every gun that you can that the gun store will let you touch, knowing that you're not going to buy a gun today. And make that clear when you're looking, I think is really important. Joe used to work in a shop. Walk in and go, I'm not planning on buying anything today. I just want to touch everything you have behind the counter. Because it takes the sales pitch away. If the guy behind the counter, and I'm not dogging on guys behind the counter, but the guy behind the counter knows he's not getting a sale, he's probably not going to try to push that $1,500 1911 down your throat. And you can talk about what fits you comfortably. Once you've held a bunch, I would say take your top 5 and see where you can rent those top 5 and then shoot it. Because how it feels in your hand will change when you shoot it. I have a revolver that feels super comfortable when I'm holding it, but the first 6 rounds out of it make the back of my hand hurt. So that's something to consider, is how it feels when you shoot it. Then the purpose for the gun. Are you going to be trying to conceal this? Are you going to go prairie dog hunting with it? All that basic stuff for getting a gun. So there's not a one size fits all for everybody. That being said, I think the most I've seen in classes is probably a 70%, 80% Glock 19. That seems to be the major standby for most people. Whether that's good, bad, or indifferent doesn't make a difference. If it's working for them, then that's great. And that would be my personal say on your EDC gun. So what do you think, Joe?
I think that's a good approach. I have a slightly different take on it.
Okay.
But I think it kind of depends on who you're talking to as well. So for the purposes of where I'm coming from, this would be somebody that has limited to no handgun experience.
Okay.
Like they may be the most proficient rifle or shotgun or machine gun or whatever else, gun person. But pistols is like a whole new world to them, right?
Okay.
And to a lesser extent, like somebody that just doesn't know guns, like never touched one, never shot one, or they did 30 years ago on the farm or something like that, right? So that's where I'm coming from when I'm talking about this particular part of the conversation. And I'm doing the thing again.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
Yeah. If I was going to tell somebody what gun to get or how to go about getting a gun, I like to tell them to actually take a class first.
Okay.
Now that has some problems, right? Like, how do you take a gun class with no handgun, right? Like, how do you take a handgun class with no pistol? Well, if you're an instructor worth your salt, you probably have a handgun for people like that. Mm-hmm. If you're going to a range that has classes offered, they probably have rental firearms. You could pick something up, and what I would recommend that you do is say, look, I don't know what I don't know. I'm new to this. I know I want to carry a pistol and I know I want it to work. So what gun should I take for this class? Because I want to learn from the instructor and I want to not have to worry about all the little things of making the gun work when it's supposed to work, but it's not working.
Sure.
And so at that point, if the instructor is knowledgeable and worth their salt, they're going to recommend a pistol that's going to be very close to or identical to, in fact, a Glock 19.
Right.
It may be the CZ version of the Glock 19, the CZ P10. It may be the Smith & Wesson version of the M&P 2.0. It may be something along those lines. But in essence, what you're going to end up with is a pistol that holds somewhere between 10 and 17 rounds of ammunition, chambered in 9mm, semi-automatic, and is going to be extremely reliable. At this point, what you're working with is essentially the F-150 of handguns. It's not the best truck for hauling an 18-wheeler, trailer down the road, and it's not, a low-riding, tiny little sports truck. It's kind of a catch-all pistol. It's something that you could do a lot of different things with, but not necessarily be perfect at any one thing. But it's going to function for you. As long as you are functioning, it will function. Essentially.
Right.
As long as you're feeding it good ammunition and it's in a relatively clean state and the parts have been the maintenance has been done to the handgun, it should work for you. And in the case of a Glock 19, even if all those things haven't been done, it probably will still work for you. It's not to say that that's the best pistol for you. It's just like, hey, now you have a baseline. You now know enough about shooting a handgun and the principles of marksmanship and the principles of handgun operation and shooting it, and a class under your belt and a bunch of repetitions with a pistol that maybe you didn't actually like. Maybe the whole class you're like, man, this doesn't fit my hand. I don't like the way the finger grooves rub against my knuckles or whatever, right? But you have a baseline. Right. So now when you go to the gun store to say, hey, I'm here to buy my first handgun, I took a 500, a 700, an 800 round count 1 day, 2 day pistol class with Rob Neal or Scott Jitalinsky or just an instructor. Pick your instructor, right?
Right. Any of the other great instructors out there.
Yeah.
Not that I'm on that list of great instructors.
Yeah, you're good. But it could be a basic class. It could be an intermediate class. It doesn't really matter, right? Like you're taking a class, and as long as you're safe and you've got good equipment, you're paying attention, and the instructor's cool with you being there, and you've signed all the waivers, and everyone around you is safe, then that's good. Now you can go to that gun shop counter, and you kind of have an idea of like, I've actually fired a pistol a couple hundred times, and I kind of know what I'm looking at. So when I pick up that other gun that's a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger or a little bit thinner or thicker or whatever, you have a baseline understanding. It's kind of like I'm going to go buy a truck and I've never driven a truck before.
Sure.
If I went to the dealership, it would be nice to be like, what? I've driven 1,000 miles in an F-150. I drove from here to Montana and back, or here to Wyoming and back. I have some miles under my belt. I have some rounds and some trigger presses under my belt. It's not to say that that truck is the best truck or the best vehicle for you, or that gun is the best gun for you. But you have a baseline understanding. It worked the entire time. You worked the entire time. And now you're ready to make a purchasing decision. You have something to compare it to, as opposed to this one feels a certain way and this one fits a certain way. Like until you've shot it, you truly don't know how it fits or feels.
Right.
Like, okay, yeah, if you pick the gun up and it's literally like making you bleed just by picking it up, then that's probably a good sign that gun's not a good fit for you unless you don't know what you're doing. Right?
The High Point that does that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's their bloodline edition.
Right. It's the one with all those diamonds on the grip.
Yep. But at a minimum, like let's say somebody's like, look, I have $400 to spend, $500 to spend. They have a limit, right? Like they cannot spend more than this. They're like, I can either take the class and then not have any money left over for a whole year to buy a gun, or I can take the class and then the only gun I can buy is going to be $100 pistol,
Right.
Or I can just buy a gun. Well, at that point, then my next most recommended course of action would be go to a range that will let you rent a multitude of handguns.
Right.
And don't just pick one up at the shop and try it. Pick a gun up and go out to the range and shoot 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 rounds of ammunition. Make sure that an RSO or an instructor or a friend that actually knows what they're doing and doesn't tell you they know what they're doing, but they know what they're doing, can help you through the administrative process of taking it out of the case and putting bullets in the magazine and loading the magazine to the gun and chambering that first round and firing shots at a target.
Sure.
and try couple different calibers, try a couple different sizes, a couple different brands before you then go and spend money. And then along with that, check out YouTube, check out Google, and look at some of the review videos that are out there from reputable sources. Make sure it's a reputable source, not somebody that's getting paid under the table to tell you that this product is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And go from there. But I think it's not a bad idea, but it's not an optimal plan for somebody that has very limited experience or no experience with a handgun to just go to a shop and be like, hey, I'm not buying a gun today. I'm going to put my hands on all these guns and then I'm going to make an arbitrary decision today or after I've slept on it for 48 hours.
Sure.
And I know you're not saying that, Rob. I'm not trying to come into conflict with you.
No. And I think what I should have started is that most of the people that ask me this are in a class with me.
Yep.
So
so we're coming at it from two different
yeah.
people that we're talking to. So
yeah. So the people I've already apparently talked to you have come take a class from me. And now I'm saying, hey, let's go do this. And I agree. Yeah. When I say go to a gun shop and say, hey, I'm not going to buy anything today, that's a gun shop that doesn't have a range.
Gotcha.
If you go to a shop that has a range, tell them, I'm not here to pick out a gun today. I am going to spend some money because I do want to test fire stuff. But yeah, if you can do it all in one day, great. Most of the people I've dealt with when they're asking that question are going to take a couple of weeks, a month to go through this process. And they're going to say, okay, I went and handled all these guns. And I came away liking the VP9, the SIG 320, the Glock. I hated the Glock 19, which I look at them like, you're crazy because that's literally the easiest gun. You mentioned it earlier. It's like, I want a gun that can do A, B, and C, and it's kind of an all-around thing. We're back to that hammer thing again. Because that's what a Glock is. It's a hammer, and it hits nails. It doesn't, and that's all it wants to do. It doesn't have to look pretty. We've talked about this. I think the Beretta is still the sexiest gun on the planet. It's just got all the right curves. I mean, that doesn't mean I like to shoot it. It just means I think it's pretty.
I'm in the other boat. I think it's ugly, and I love the way it shoots. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah. Well, I also have like normal size human hobbit hands, whereas you've got more like man size hands. So you're good to go.
Does it make it look bigger now?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
If you shave around your wrist, it'll look bigger, I heard. So let's not go down that path. Let's keep this a kid-friendly video. So I'm the one who will do it. So I'm not saying you. So talking about the pistol, I think we've done a pretty good job covering that. What do you think? John Correa on active self-protection is pretty big on saying that a reload has never made a difference that he's seen in like the 15,000+ videos that he's watched and narrated, that he's never seen a reload make a difference in one of his defensive encounter gunfights. And I haven't watched all of his videos, so I can't back this up. But I'm willing to take him at his word for it and say, okay, sure, no problem. If you're not law enforcement, if you're not military, the reload has never made a big difference in the outcome of the fight. That said, a malfunction in a magazine will flat out turn your firearm into a paperweight. So if you don't have a backup magazine, then I think your firearm is deficient. So in talking about that, would you say, and I know where I would stand on this, and it would be the spare magazine, but they used to say the fastest way to clear a malfunction was to get another gun. So that's where we came up with the backup gun concept. And then there's the guys who carry a backup magazine and a backup gun and a backup magazine for their backup gun.
Yep.
Right. And then their wife carries a spare gun for them too. And like, that's cool if you have your own ammo train and your supply line is good. You're getting supply drops like Call of Duty or something crazy. But if would you say, A, no spare magazine, no backup gun, B, spare magazine, or C, backup gun? Where would you fall into that on the EDC?
I've never think about this. I've never carried a backup gun. I've never had two pistols on me at one time, aside from like goofing around at the shop at the gun range.
I was going to say, how do you like John Woo?
Right?
And you can't.
Yeah. There are relevant reasons to carry 2 full-size duty pistols in a duty capacity within law enforcement or military. But for me, I carry a pistol with a large enough magazine that I probably have more ammunition on board that gun than most gunfights have lasted, if that makes sense. So like, let's just say, average gunfight in the United States is under 10 rounds fired in order to achieve a successful result. I've got more than 10 rounds.
Okay.
I'm making these numbers up. I'm just saying that
no statistics, no correlation. Yeah.
The way I look at it is like, if I leave the house and all I had time to do, and I'm going to carry a gun to where I'm going, the only thing I had time to do is like grab the pistol and the holster and stick it on my belt line.
Get out the door.
I've got some ammo in the gun, and I'm not like second guessing myself as I walk out the door, like, should I grab another magazine or not?
Right. And
so that way, if I'm wearing board shorts and a t-shirt, I've got 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 rounds of ammunition on me in that gun ready to go. Is that going to work for everybody? No. Some people, they cannot be inconvenienced, or their size or their physical limitations, like carrying a gun that large or that much weight would put them in a position where they're literally just choosing to never carry the gun because it's uncomfortable, it bothers them, it hurts them, they can't conceal it. So that's not a solution for every single person. I'm 6'1", 210 pounds, so I can get away with a little bit larger gun and carry a little bit more weight on my waistline, on my belt, so that I can either choose, full-size gun with a full magazine, full-size gun with full magazine, and an extra magazine. I've never really tried to do the backup gun deal. I think that definitely has a lot of applicability to like the duty capacity, like a police officer who is not every single time he gets out of his cruiser grabbing his patrol rifle or patrol shotgun. He's leaving his car with his gun and his magazines on him. And there have been officers whose lives have been saved because they had a backup pistol on them.
Right.
I think it's kind of a dangerous road to walk down, trying to presuppose what you will need for the gunfight that you don't know that you're about to get in. Like, it's not like we're all preparing for that, moment from Back to the Future. The Libyans, 20-something assassins that are all there to kill you, right?
Right.
Hopefully none of us ever find ourselves in that situation. But I want to have enough ammunition, and I don't want to be second-guessing myself in the middle of a gunfight. Like, crap, I really wish that I had more bullets, regardless of how those bullets are carried, in another gun or in another magazine. Okay. For me, the primary reason I carry the magazine is not for malfunction. It is not because I'm afraid of running out of ammo. It is because I have numerous times in training inadvertently released a magazine when I did not want to. Okay. I've had magazine spring catches or magazine catch springs fail to the point where drawing the gun and pressing out and the magazine falls out.
Right.
And now I literally have one round. Well, on a flat range where I'm stationary, I can take the time to look at myself like I'm an idiot, take a knee, bend down, whatever, pick up the magazine, reinsert it into the gun, rack around it, and be good. But in a gunfight, in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 yards with 1 or 2 assailants where I'm moving or they're moving or both, trying to have to fish on the ground in the dark in the parking lot for a magazine I dropped, it's much easier to not have to worry about that and just to reach back into your pocket or reach back into your pouch and pull out another 15, 16, 17, 10, whatever rounds, put in the gun and be back up and running.
Right.
I've had that happen to myself personally, and I've seen it happen to tens of other students, 10, 20, 30, 40 other people where that's occurred across a wide variety of handgun makes and models, both brand new guns and guns that were honestly, that thing should probably be melted down. It's almost worthless at this point. It's so used and abused and old.
There's a video somewhere of me with my magazine flying across the range.
Yep. Yeah. It happens. And then a lesser extent is the malfunction thing. Yeah, if your gun, you just lucked out in that box of critical duty or that box of gold dot or box of HST, you had a dud round or something crazy where you had a double feed or a stovepipe malfunction, having an extra magazine makes it a whole lot easier than having to take the magazine out, lock to the rear, or whatever your method for clearing that type of malfunction is, and then having to reinsert that magazine that has questionable ammunition in it.
Sure.
It's like, I just had a malfunction with this magazine. I don't know if it was the gun, the ammo, or the magazine, or all three.
Right.
And now I have to reinsert one of those potential three things back into my gun and hope that it works again.
Right.
Versus like I can take out two of those things. Like I can take out the ammunition equation, I can take out the magazine equation by just putting a new mag in. And now I know that if the gun continues to have problems, it's probably the gun or me, or the ammunition if it's from the same
Sure.
lot, the same box. But and then to a lesser extent, like getting into a gunfight that requires you to expend 30 or 40 rounds of ammunition, you know, and if you had one bullet less, you know, the fight would be lost, and you'd be going home in a body bag. I don't think that's as likely, but
for that time when you woke up on a plane flight and you just, how did I get to Afghanistan? I was going to Denver.
The Libyans. No,
and I would say what you said about the magazine falling out, I would throw into the malfunction category. Like something happened and this mag doesn't work, or it's not there anymore. You slap a new mag in, you're good to go. And that's probably the only reason I still carry a spare mag now. Dear Lord, man, you get into some of this and you're carrying, you know, you were in the infantry, I was in the infantry. So we have the motto, I'd rather have it and never need it than to ever need it and not have it.
Yep.
And until you start carrying 200 pounds of gear around, you're like, man, I hope I need this today.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this isn't worth it. So yeah, I agree. I think a spare mag is a solid option. You just got a new mag holder. Kangaroo something?
It's a Dark Star Gear koala pouch.
Koala pouch.
And they make them for a couple different magazine types, but they're kind of like a one-size-fit-all approach. Magazine pouch. So like if you have a Glock or a Glock-sized magazine, this pouch will fit that magazine, both the short ones and the really long ones, and then you can adjust how it rides and how it fits.
Nice.
So you can carry that mag pouch with a lot of different types and sizes of magazines.
And you said that's working well for you, appendix as well?
Yep.
Okay.
So far it's been working fine. I find that's a lot easier than carrying in the pocket. If you are going to carry in the pocket, which I do from time to time and have done in the past, put something around the magazine while it's in your pocket. I've had to clear malfunctions, or almost had to clear malfunctions, when I went to pull my magazine out of my back or front pocket, and there's been a gum wrapper, a coin, some lint, some other crap between the first and the second round of the magazine.
Sure.
That will or would have caused a malfunction, or at least would have a high likelihood of causing malfunction, versus a magazine pouch or something that's closed where you're not going to get all that ingress of debris into the magazine.
Sure. I was going to say, I really like the Snag Mag magazine holders that are made for pockets. They aren't fully enclosed though, so what you were talking about could still be an issue. So yeah, maybe I'll reach out to them and say, hey, is there a way you could fully enclose the open end of the magazine? Because it doesn't really matter. This is a CO2 magazine, so it's not nothing. But if the top of your magazine is where it's open, it doesn't matter if down here is cleared off and cut so that it's lighter weight. You'd want something to cover the tip of your magazine. So great option.
Or just turn your pocket inside out before you put the magazine in there, and don't put anything else in that pocket, while the magazine's
That's easy to do as a dad. I don't know how many times I've come home with an open lollipop stuck inside my pocket that I wasn't eating.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I think med gear, cell phone, ID, CCW, spare mag is a good option. Talk about flashlight. Yep. What else? Why not? Let's hit knives. We'll hit knives last because that might rabbit hole a little bit. But let's talk about, for your EDC, that some brainstorm idea of a concealed carry badge or the sash, like outside of I'm a security person, I'm a volunteer at the church security, I'm doing something where I would like to better identify myself in this environment. Let's talk like just something that your everyday carrier would carry, in the hopes that they would be able to be better identifiable to law enforcement. I think, from my point of view, When the cops get there, it doesn't matter what badge, what sash, what flashy neon sign you have that says good guy. They're going to focus on the guy with the gun until the guy with the gun doesn't have it anymore, and then they can move to the next guy with the gun. That's my personal opinion. But what are you thinking when you think of sashes and badges and such?
Again, not wanting to get into like the presupposing what type of scenario you or
Sure.
I or the guy watching this video or the gal watching this video 5 years from now or whatever is going to find themselves in, and try and talk them out or talk them into something. But with that, I'll have to try and do my research and get you the study, get you the source for this. And maybe if you put this on YouTube, it can be down in the description.
Sure.
But there was a test that was ran with SWAT officers. And I don't know if this was one SWAT team, one police department agency, or if this was at a school where a wide variety of teams were coming through. I don't know if this was a basic school, an advanced school.
Sure.
And this is not knocking law enforcement, super pro law enforcement. This is just the reality of stress,
Right.
and the limited amount of training and the limited amount of time that some agencies can devote to this type of thing. And if a SWAT team is only getting, minimal training for a high stress environment, where are we at as far as our ability to train and be stress inoculated and be dealing with these type of problems? So the story, as it was related to me, was essentially that a team of SWAT officers were put into this situation where they're going through a room clearing scenario, responding to an active threat with simunition, paint marking UTM rounds. And the instructors purposefully set this type of scenario up for them. So they're going down this hallway and they start receiving fire from the end of the hallway. And they had been told prior to going in, like, look, this is the type of call out that you're on. If you receive fire, if it is contested entry, essentially,
Sure.
hey, we thought we were just going to go in and get this person and drag them out. And all of a sudden, no, they're like shooting at us with an AK now. They were told to pull back and do this and do that and do this third thing and then go back in at a required timeline.
Okay.
And so the SWAT officers, they go in, they get fire, they pull back out, they deal with their injured, their wounded officers. They go through all their officer down stuff and everything that they're supposed to do. This is not a hostage rescue mission where, the lives of your officers and yourself don't matter as much as mission outcome. This is more of like hey, we're dealing with a crazy person or a drug hit or something like that. And so they go in, they get fire, they pull back out. The instructor cadre then took the opponent at the end of the hallway and pulled him out of the situation and put in a uniformed police officer from those officers' department.
Okay.
Standing at that same hallway holding a gun with the instructions of, do not point this at those officers, do not shoot at those officers. All the proper protective equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this team had just experienced simulated gunfire in the form of getting the bees, the UTM rounds.
Right.
And now they're pushing back down that hallway where they just received fire from.
Right.
And the first person they encounter is a uniformed police officer, not a plainclothes officer, not a SWAT cop, wearing the blue and the black with the badge and the shiny, glossy gun belt, holding a pistol, pointed away from them. And it was 100% of the officers that were put through this scenario all shot at that police officer
The guy
with
the gun.
sim rounds.
Yep.
Because they were like, we just got shot at, and we're going in here to shoot at that person.
Right.
And when they came around the corner and they saw a dude
With
dressed
a
as a
gun.
cop,
Yep.
they didn't question, like, is that badge real? Are you an officer? Hey, what's your last four? What's your name?
Right.
What patrol zone are you on? Hey, Smitty. Like, there was none of that. It was literally just like, gun, bah, 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 and shot this guy and lit him up with paint. Again, I will have to do some research and I'll have to pull up all the information on this and maybe we can put it in the description. But the moral of that story is that, do you think in an active shooter or in a gunfight where the police that are responding are not necessarily highly trained SWAT teams, but are individual officers that are a year away from retirement or a year out of the academy,
Right.
that are out of breath, their adrenaline is pumping through their veins. Maybe this is the first call to a gun they've ever had in their 20-plus year career.
Right.
Maybe they're a year away from retiring and they just want to go to the beach with mom and the kids and not do cop stuff anymore. They're a year out of the academy and they don't really like violence. They're just doing this to make money, right?
Right.
That's the officer that you're going to be dealing with potentially in this type of situation. And to put your hope and trust in a knockoff police badge that says CCW on it, or a sash that says CCW on it. So that way, when the cops show up and you're still holding your gun, they won't shoot you.
Right.
Or when the cops show up and they see you shooting someone else, they'll see that badge or that sash and go, that guy's the good dude, and
Right.
not shoot you. I mean,
you
don't
can hope.
I don't want to put my faith and trust in a CCW badge or a CCW sash. Could it be useful in certain circumstances?
Sure.
But to look at it as, this is going to save me. This is going to prevent me from getting shot by the police or another law-abiding armed citizen, right? On the other hand, in the confusion of a multiple attacker event, you staying there with something that clearly identifies you as a good guy to opposing forces may not be the best idea. Maybe keeping the gun in your holster and figuring out what's going on instead of let me deploy this sash and pull out my Superman gun, and now I'm here to save the day. And now everybody around you knows, oh, that guy's trying to help shoot my buddy, and we're trying to rob this bank or kill these people. I'm just going to shoot him now.
Right.
Again, these are all kind of made up scenarios, but it's something to consider. Maybe the badge or maybe the sash isn't the thing that's going to save the day. Maybe some sound training and some sound tactics and some sound equipment and some sound pre-planning.
Right.
How you're going to respond to a given event or a type of scenario would be far better than spending the $24.95 on the fake cop badge that says CCW permit.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been a while since I've priced one of those, but I think they're $20-$30 normally.
Yeah.
Hey guys, that's a box of 50 rounds.
Yeah.
Go to the range.
Spare magazine.
Yeah, get a spare magazine, right? We talked earlier really briefly about budget and putting your money where it needs to be. And I think that's probably one of the key takeaways for this conversation would be if I have a limited budget and I have limited funds and I have limited resources and limited time, where should I put my money in this? So I would say, don't let the gun store guy talk you into a $1,500 firearm. I'm talking into the $500-$600 firearm, and then spend that extra grand on one or two really good quality classes. And I'm not coming from an instructor trying to get, hey, give me your $1,000. Hey, if you want to come take a class from me and pay me $1,000, great. I'm not that expensive. But if you want to take a 2-day class from Scott Jedlinski, we mentioned earlier, John Carrillo with Active Self-Protection is coming up in June, and he's going to do a class. I think it's $200 for a 9-hour class. You want to go to one of the TAC conferences, Shooters Symposium. That's where I buy all my lumber for the targets. Shooters Emporium. Shooters Symposium. TACCon, I think, is a great cost-effective way to go get some training. John is doing a conference, the Active Self-Protection Bullets and Bibles Conference, I think is what it is, out in Kansas this year. So I think in TACCon's in Texas for 2020. What else? Was Shooter Symposium. They just started their payment plan, which is fantastic. $100 a month, or now it would be a little bit more than $100 a month, but pay it off and over the course of the year and then go. And get some good training and get it from multiple different instructors. I love the idea of tactical conferences. I think that's fantastic because you're not stuck with, he was an okay guy and I got a little bit out of the class. I dipped my foot in the water. I like the way this guy taught. I'd like to take a longer class with him. So as far as your everyday carry though, and maybe we'll do another video on different training things we can talk about. But as far as everyday carry, we almost left off the belt, because you need a good belt in case you need a tourniquet. No, right? You need a good tourniquet in case you need a good tourniquet. Um, you need a good belt because you got to be able to hold your dang pants up. And you need a good belt to be able to support the weight of your firearm and your magazines and whatever, however many 30, 40 pounds of EDC gear you have in your pockets this week.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so a good quality holster. I use Hanks belts. It's a leather holster that's near a 1/4 inch thick. So it's a little bit thicker than most of your normal belts, but it's sturdy as all get out. The 511 makes a whole series of belts, but they scream, I'm tactical cool guy. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish with your gear. If you're running a competition or something and you want a Cobra belt buckle, go for it. You just be aware that, just like the concealed carry badge kind of screams, hey, I have a concealed carry permit, your belt might as well. So as far as belts, good quality. Stop buying the $12 Walmart belt. I carried on one for 15 years. But man, that thing looked like it had something heavy hanging from it for 15 years when I finally tossed it. I think my Hanks belt was 50. It's got a lifetime guarantee other than losing weight, which I've done this year. So they told me just cut the ends off and punch a new hole in it. I was like, excellent. Yeah. So what do you think on belts? Like, what do you look for in a good quality belt for your EDC?
So I've been using Volund Gearworks belts. They're out of Ohio. Great people, great company. I don't know them personally. I don't get any kickbacks from them or anything like that. I bought 3 or 4 of their belts over the years, and usually what ends up happening is I'll sell one to try a new one, or I will outgrow it, or hopefully what'll be happening now is the other way around. I'll be like, oh, this belt's too big. I need to go to a smaller one. But a material that I've really liked across a few different belt companies is something called biothane, which is essentially a synthetic leather. And so when you think fake leather, you think of like fake leather purses that your wife buys or that you buy, and maybe not that great of a quality piece. But the biothane material, it's just Google it, look it up. It's got some really interesting properties to it. It's for thinner material than leather. It's way, way stronger than a lot of other things. Okay. And it's got a nice amount of flex and stiffness to it so that it kind of moves with you throughout the day. You don't get hot spots. You don't get chafing. It definitely supports the weight of the gun, several magazines, handcuffs, like anything you're going to wear on your belt line as an officer or as a security guy or as a concealed carry permit holder. They also make nylon stuff as well. Another really good one is the more of a conventional belt with like a standard buckle is the First Spear Line 1 belt. My wife has one of those. Again, it's also made out of biothane material. It looks just like leather. It doesn't scream, I have a gun. It just looks like a regular leather pants belt or, pants or shorts belt. But it's designed to hold a gun. And so I think that's really cool that the industry and like tactical equipment has started to focus a little bit more on concealed carry and more covert options as opposed to like Cobra belt buckles and flashy this and American flag that and Punisher skulls this, instead of trying to like, hey, let's try and blend in a little bit and still accomplish the same goal of being durable, comfortable, sturdy, and able to like help you carry the equipment that you need to carry. And it's pretty cheap materials. You can pick up a biothane belt from a wide variety of companies for anywhere from like $25 to like $75.
Nice.
So a really, really high end one, $75, $80, and like a bottom of the barrel, like low end one, $25, $30. But the material itself is really cool. What you're then paying for between 25 and 80 or 25 and 75 is the craftsmanship, how the seams are finished, and the buckle mechanism at the end. Okay. If you want just a bare bones basic belt buckle, going to be a little cheaper. Something that has a little bit more complexity or durability, longevity to it might cost you a little bit more. Awesome. And it looks like leather. So Cordura belts, kind of like what you see with like a 511 belt. You didn't even just see the belt buckle. You can just see that type of fabric. And it's like, oh, it looks like a military belt. It looks like a cop belt.
Right.
I usually wear Usually I wear my shirts untucked. So the belt is concealed unless I'm reaching for my wallet or bending over to tie my shoes or pick up my kid or something like that. So my belt usually, and my belt buckle usually isn't like flashing out there for all the world to see, because if it was, then they would probably see my gun and my tourniquet and some of the other things I had attached down there in that area. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for belts for me.
Awesome. So, I think we've covered this pretty well. Anything that you think we could? Oh, yes.
I've been trying to talk about these all day.
Knives. I said we were going to save that for last. So Joe's got his high-speed Spyderco. This was actually given to me a couple years ago, and I love it. It is a little pocket clip. It's an assisted opening blade, which is legal here in Colorado now.
Well, that's cool.
Kershaw? You mentioned your box cutter. That's basically what this is. I can tell you from personal experience, you can get this blade that far into your hand without trying very hard. So it does have a good solid blade. It is a Kershaw. I'm actually trying to find the model. It was a gift. There's just not enough light in here to do this. Oh, you know what? I have a flashlight that I can use. Nice. This is the model number 1313 BLK is what I have on here. Other than that, I don't know. But yeah, Kershaw makes a nice little blade. It's a good little box cutter. It's what I use it for. Checking the mail, stuff like that. As far as an EDC blade, my EDC blade is actually upstairs because I'm not planning on leaving the house today. I have that crowner knife that I got is what I carry. And that's if I'm going to have to fight, zombies and, angry werewolves and whatever else, ninjas that I might have to knife fight with, that's the knife I want to do it with. It's a fixed blade. I'm firmly in the camp of if you have a knife for fighting, that it should be a fixed blade. At TacCon this year, I forget his last name, Paul, did a class on combatives with a folding blade. And I didn't get to take it, so I can't get too into it, what it was, but it looked really cool as far as understanding the limits for what a folding blade can do. But I think if you're going to have a tactical, EDC fighting style knife, that it should be a fixed blade, only because it gives you more rigidity and a little more durability than a folding blade would be. If I got to fight Nazi werewolf ninjas, then and I got to do it with this little fixed 1.5-inch long blade, you know what? I probably needed to bring a better gun this fight. But yeah, so knives. I agree with you that we talked about it earlier, but the box cutter approach. If you use your tool for cutting paper and cutting envelopes open, something that works like a box cutter is great. We've talked about Spydercos. I think I probably went through about 8 Spydercos early on in my security work. The only reason they broke was because I was using them like a screwdriver or a tool. And that's not what they were designed for. But I kind of got tired of it, and I was like, dude, I need to carry a multi-tool because that's what I use my knife for. So yes, it's got a blade, but it's also got a screwdriver, and it's also and I kind of switched away from the multi-tool when I was working at the airport doing security. They didn't want to let you come through security, and I ended up taking a Gerber multi-tool and breaking the blade off.
Nice.
So that I could get through security at the airport with my multi-tool. Like, no, it has no knife.
They actually make one now. I don't know if it's Gerber or Leatherman. They make one that specifically
has no knife,
designed for airport security, and it has no knife on it, which is kind of cool.
Yep. Yeah, this was 8 years ago, and they didn't have cool stuff like that because we were still trying to figure out if TSA was going to last. So they're still here, folks. And yes, I just went through the airport with my med kit, and they actually had the TSA guy said thanks for carrying med gear.
Cool.
So I thought that was really cool. Thoughts on knives from you?
I'm not a knife fighter. I've never gone to a knife fighting class. I hope I never get into a fight that involves using knives, either me using a knife or someone else using a knife. Right. Am I prepared to do that? As in, am I willing to do that? Yeah, if that's my only other option between me saving my life or my child or my wife's life, then I'll do what I need to do. But I don't want to come off as somebody that's been there, done that, been in 100 knife fights or anything like that. If you're into that type of thing, that's awesome. It doesn't really interest me too much. I carry a knife as a tool and not necessarily as a self-defense tool.
Right.
Opening boxes, cutting through rope, cable, zip ties, things like that. Multi-tool when I go to the range. I used to carry both. I used to carry a knife and a multi-tool, and then I kind of went back and forth like one or the other, and now I pretty much just carry a knife and then have a multi-tool in the truck or the SUV or in the range bag or whatever. For a fixed blade like fighting knife, the one I've kind of seen the most traction with, that a lot of people that I look up to and respect kind of seem to like gravitate towards, have been two different ones. The Colonel knife blade. I know BCM is making it right now. I think there's another company that makes that style of knife. They make a folding one now and a fixed one.
Keep going.
Yep. But it lets you basically grip it and pull it out the same way that you would grip and pull out a firearm. Yep. There you go. So if you can show it like how it would be oriented on a belt. So it's literally like you're going to grab a pistol. And there's a few different ways you could carry it or draw it out. It comes with, from what I understand, is a pretty decent sheath to begin with.
Yep.
And you can carry it inside the waistband. I'm sure you could rig it up outside the waistband as well. The other one is the Benchmade. I'll have to come back to you on that one, but it's their push dagger, 175, and then they have another one as well that was designed off of a Spartan's blade design.
Okay.
That is more of like a duty type knife.
Okay.
Those are kind of like the two or three that I would look at as far as like a fixed blade knife. Again, not a knife fighter, not something I'm really trying to incorporate into my stuff. But if you're looking into those type of things, I would say look at those options.
Sure.
And then the other thing, this is going to kind of tie it all together for me, and I won't really have anything else to add unless you have something you want to ask me, is regardless of what you're going to do, regardless of how you're going to do it, and regardless of what you're going to do it with, pressure test yourself, your techniques, and your equipment in realistic training.
Yep.
And safe, realistic training, whether that be ground fighting, whether that be vehicle stuff, whether that be knives, guns, medical. I think a really good class or type of class to take is Simunition Force on Force training. Aaron Cowan runs a really, really good Force on Force class, both for active shooter response and law enforcement and civilians and everything else. And see if that CCW sash or that CCW badge or that knife or that reload and how you're carrying it actually is going to help you in some different real world based training scenarios before you just spend some more money and start trying to carry it and think that it's going to be the end all be all. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. But you won't know until you try it out. So that's pretty much it for me, man. I got to bounce out of here. My kids are freaking out.
I can hear them in the background.
So I'll talk to you later, Rob.
Tell everybody I said hello.
Yep.
All right,
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks. So I think with what Joe was saying, he's got some valid points. If you're going to use it, train with it. If you're not going to use it, then don't carry it. If you want a knife, learn how to use the knife. It's not something that just comes naturally. We're not all born ninjas. Joe mentioned some good training from Aaron Cowan. ShivWorks does a great course, EQCQ or ECQC is the course. Really solid. They'll test your gear. Talking to those guys, they come away with broken gear all the time. They are huge proponents of what they call the clinch pick, is another knife that they all like. So if you're going the knife realm, those are good blades to look at. I don't know if you were trying to think of it, but it was the K-Bar makes the TDI, which is a duty knife. It's very similar to the Colonel. One of the things I've seen people talk about with the Colonel that they don't like is this finger hole. And in discussing that and then pressure testing it and having my finger near broken, I can say that I'm not a fan of the finger hole. Doesn't mean you have to use a finger hole. You can not use it. But there's something to think about. So yeah, if you've got gear and you don't know how to use it, it's not a magic whoopee. Get training. I think probably more important than what you're carrying is knowing how to use what you're actually carrying, as far as everyday carry. So take a class. If you've never run a gun, take a basic class. If you think you know how to run a gun, take a bigger class and then see how it works. And if you think you know how to run a gun, don't be afraid to take a basics class and just see if what you thought you knew holds up, and see if there's something new that you can pick up from that. I know Joe and I both teach basic level classes to people. And in doing that, I know we've taken multiple basic level classes. I don't think I've ever walked away from a class and gone, I learned absolutely nothing today. That was a complete waste of my money. I should have spent this money on a $1,500 1911 or the katana blade that I could carry, concealed because it collapses and expands, or whatever magic ninja suit you have. So that would be something I would really say, if you're gonna carry and you're gonna carry every day, get good gear, good quality gear, and look really hard at the training you're gonna get. I know Joe's back, so I was gonna close out, but anything else, Joe?
I don't think so. Just basically repeating what you're saying. If you're in the Colorado area, or even if you're not, look at Rob's training curriculum and his course calendar. Give him a call, an email, hit him up on this video, whatever, and reach out to him if you're interested, or you know somebody that needs some training, whether it be a refresh deal or first time, or even somebody that thinks that they know what they're doing. Again, you can pick up a lot in a basics class, whether it's your 10th class or your first class, and sometimes basic information presented by a different person and how it comes through to you, you may pick up on some things that you didn't in a previous class. It's not to say that you just need to take hundreds and hundreds of basic classes,
Sure.
But it's never a bad idea to every once in a while go hit back on the fundamentals and the basics of pistol shooting or shotgun or rifle, whatever it is that you're trying to pursue. And the cool thing I like about Rob, and I appreciate about you, man, is that you are constantly trying to self-educate and get better for yourself, and then pass that stuff on to students. So some of the stuff that Rob's passing on in his classes and pushing people towards, a lot of other basic instructors, all they're doing is getting up, repeating the same basic information that they've been sharing for the past 20 years with very little changes and very little updates. And it's just a puppy mill. They're just, chucking through students, 10 students here, 10 students here, and they're regurgitating the same old tired dogmatic material, some of which is good, and some of which has been found to actually not really apply or not be the best way to present information. And so a class that Rob's teaching next week is probably not the same class that Rob taught last year or last month or last quarter. Yeah. Even if it's titled the same thing, right. Pistol basics, whatever class. Sorry, man, I don't have your course curriculum memorized.
No, you're good.
You're
good.
Your classes are called.
The only classes that tend to stay the same are the NRA classes, because they have to.
So that's pretty much it for me. I got to bounce out of here, man. So I'm going to hang up on you and let you do your thing. And we'll talk to you soon, man. Worst case scenario, I'll see you Sunday.
All right. Hey, really quick before you go, Joe, Thank you for having this conversation with me. I hope you guys liked it. If you guys would like to, down in the comments, and you'd like to see Joe and I talk about something else, or go a little more in depth on what we talked about today on a couple of things, throw in the comments and let us know. That way we can give you what you guys want. But yeah, just if any of that information was helpful, let us know. If you challenge some of the things we had to say, throw it in the comments and we'll have a discussion about it. But yeah, if you liked it, give us a share, give us a like, and maybe subscribe to the channel. Who knows? But yeah, we'll talk to you guys later, and thanks for coming out.